Friends, we are about to begin services at this time for Michael S. Falk. I would ask if you would take it a moment now as you're making your way to your seats. If you could please take a moment to make sure that your cell phone or any other noise-making device that you have is turned off or placed in the silent mode. And again, at this time, we are going to begin services for Michael S. Falk. Officiating today is Rabbi Jason Fenster from Congregation B'nai Jehoshua Beth Elohim. And at this time, I would ask if everyone would please rise as a sign of respect as we bring the family in.
Please be seated. Ask the family to make a little circle here. We got a little. So, immediate family, Michael is wearing a ribbon. Just a moment, we're going to tear it in an ancient ceremony called Kriya. The word means tearing. As we hear that, the sound, we know that it represents the tearing that happens inside our hearts. It's an ancient ritual. This ribbon is a symbolic gesture to the rending of burden here at the loss of a loved one. As we said, we'll wear it for a week. It's a sign, a reminder, the people around you to give an extra measure of patience, an extra measure of grace and kindness, knowing that something is torn. And as we tear it, we say the words Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, which means blessed is the true judge. Not to say that there's some purpose in the loss of a loved one, someone who meant so much to you and your family, but just to ground ourselves in something deeper, bigger than ourselves, even in our loss. Baruch. To gather here in this moment, whether you're here in the chapel or joining us on Zoom, on the live stream, it's hard. A person whose life was taken much too early, who gave so much and built so much. And to be here in this moment is sacred. It is a holy obligation. Presence. To bear witness. To to hear the story and through hearing it become obligated to it. To know that though Michael is no longer with us, you, through your words, your deeds, the life that you will continue to lead, get to carry on that legacy and that memory. It's hard. It is tremendously sad. And it's holy. And your presence as well, not just for the honor of Michael's memory, but for his family. To bear witness to their suffering, to be of strength and comfort. Not that there's a word to say that will make it better. Not that there's anything you can do to make the hurt go away. But to be present, to sit with them in their loss. That is holy and sacred and a tremendous gift to them and to Michael's legacy. And so today, we'll start that process of mourning. We'll offer ancient words, new words as well. We'll speak of memory, so memory can become a blessing. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. Often in moments like this, we turn to psalms, we turn to biblical poetry that speaks to the depths of the human experience, not to say that anyone has ever felt exactly the way that you feel right now, but just to try to find poetry or language that speaks to what we are experiencing. And often we'll turn to the 23rd Psalm. We know it might live in our bones. It speaks about the valley of shadows. And I know that Michael was not a person who believed in God, maybe adamantly so. But you don't need a God theology for this poem. It tells us that who we are and what we have is enough. We lack nothing. That there is a path before us that is straight, that is comfortable, that has water beside it. That there's a path laid in front so that we'll be taken care of. And though right now we may walk through a valley of darkness, to dwell in the pit of sorrow. And it's okay. It's okay to be there. It's time. It's time to sit in the valley. But I think we forget about the end of the psalm too. It says that goodness and mercy are following us. The Hebrew literally means chase. While we sit in the valley of darkness, goodness and mercy, life and blessing, memory and legacy chase us out of darkness towards light and towards life. Right now, we sit in the valley. We'll dwell there for some time. But life, legacy, goodness, mercy, and blessing are nipping at our heels, urging us forward.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Binot Dashe yar bitzeni, Al mei menuchot yenahaleini. Nafshi yeshovev, Nafshi yeshovev, Yancheni, V'maglei tzedek, V'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet. Lo irara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umishantecha. Shivtecha umishantecha. Hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan. Taroch lefanai shulchan. Taroch lefanai shulchan. Neged zorerai. Dishanta vashemen roshi. Kosi revaya. Dishanta vashemen roshi. Kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai. L'orech yamim. We'll read together on the inside of your handout. The 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year, and when it ends, you will remember him. When you are weary or in need of strength, you will remember him. When you are lost or sick at heart, you will remember him. When you have joys you yearn to share, you will remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live. For he is now a part of us as we remember him. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God is given and God is taken away. Blessed be God's name. And surely with Michael, a great gift was given. A gift of dedication, strength, of wisdom, of knowing what's right. V'Adonai lakach. And he has been taken. And there are not words to describe that reality. And nonetheless, there is something worthy of blessing, worthy of praise and celebration in the life that he led, in the work that he did, in all that he built, and all that will surely sustain after him. And so we'll begin to tell stories The Hebrew word for memory is zecher, and it means to remember, but it also means to mention, as if to say that memory can't just live in our minds or our hearts. Memory must live on our lips. We have to speak of memory. The big stories that changed our life, and the little ones, the ones that might not matter, the ones you think you've told 1,000 times, we tell them again and again and again. And then zecher tzaddik livracha, the memory of this righteous person will become a blessing. We will speak memory aloud. We begin by inviting Suzanne and Colin to come forward and share a few words. There's a box up here. There's a box up here.
I'll read it. Michael had a strong presence, and you knew that when he walked into any room. He was brilliant, snarky, sometimes difficult, but he also had a silly side. Michael always believed in doing the right thing, even though sometimes the right thing may not always be right to everyone else. We had many great moments and also some difficult times. Our greatest joy and our greatest accomplishment is Colin. He loved you unconditionally. Michael always stayed true to himself and true to his word. He said that he was not going to let this disease stop him from living, and he did exactly that. The day Michael found out he was diagnosed with ALS in September of 2019, he started writing in a journal. The first sentence in the journal read, "I have no regrets and no incompletes." Michael, we will miss you, but your heart and your soul will be alive in everyone you touched. We love you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Next, we'll invite Michael's business partner and mentor and friend, Jim Ware.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Of course.
My name is Jim Ware. I was a friend and colleague of Michael's. Thank you all for being with us to honor Michael's life. My remarks, I'll keep them short, in about an hour or so. Eulogies praise a person's life, and in Michael's case, that's an easy assignment. He was gifted in many ways, and he used those gifts. As an athlete, he loved baseball and pitched so well that he achieved minor league status in today's jargon. So early on, he was faced with a life decision, whether to try to make it in the major leagues or to pursue a career in finance. He chose the latter, and he made a name for himself in that field. As a result of all his professional accomplishments, as being a chartered financial analyst, he was recognized by that organization with the Hortense Friedman Lifetime Achievement Award. Let it suffice to say, that's a big deal. These are not given out like party favors. These are earned by people who really contribute in the industry. His contributions included speeches which he loved to deliver with passion and provocation, articles, books, media interviews, assignments like planning the CFA's annual conference, CFA Institute, and being on the board of regents for a local conference they hosted. And these events took place all over the world, the annuals, so he was very well traveled. Michael used his first-rate mind. He understood very well the gift he had. A really brilliant mind, as Suzanne said. In his own words, the books that he wrote, the thoughts that he had, were his legacy. He would be disappointed in me if I didn't tell you what those books are, since they are his legacy. Let's all learn how to fish to sustain long-term economic growth. Get to work on our future. So Michael liked to have a little wry wit and some fun, but these are serious policy books about how to make our economy and our country and the world a better place. And as you can imagine, they're very thoughtful and spot on in so many ways. And then finally, with Keith, put your hand up. Keith is managing partner of our firm, was a really good friend and longtime colleague of Michael's. We wrote together Money, Meaning, and Mindsets. We have copies available for everyone. And Michael asked you to read them and pass them on to others. His life mission was to improve people's financial welfare one person at a time. And he took that seriously. He was passionate and committed to this mission, and it showed with his friends like myself. He was very generous and wise in giving me advice. I should have followed it. And with clients, he offered keen insights and straight advice, all aimed at providing financial well-being for their clients, ordinary people like teachers, firefighters, people on the police force, and the family down the street. He was really committed to that. He was so committed to his mission that sometimes clients bristled at his direct advice. He was a truth teller. If any of his clients were not meeting their fiduciary duties, taking care of their clients, he would let them know, unafraid of the consequences. And Michael thanked us often because his team, there are 9 of us, had his back completely. He would never hear a word from us if a client said, "Oh, we didn't like what you said, you're off the assignment." That was fine. In preparing these remarks, I asked our team of 9 to offer comments about what they appreciated about Michael. I wanted to represent the team. In less than about 5 minutes, I got 14 bullet points, nonstop, just like popcorn, pop, 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 pop. I'll mention a couple of them. His passion for the industry, which kept him going right up until he passed. His intellectual capacity, one of the most knowledgeable people I ever met, spoken by Brian. Brian, hand up, please. That's Brian, one of his colleagues. His objectivity. You know, in a time now when it's almost impossible to find an objective conversation about these important political topics and whatnot, Michael was amazing at just bringing this calm, rational mind to a conversation. He would come to parties at our house, and you know how it happens, the liberals and the conservatives, they line up, they get ready for a big battle. Michael would come in and just start stating facts and truths, and they would all calm down. They'd realize this guy actually knows what he's talking about. We got to back off because he actually provides accurate information. He was courageous in the face of ALS, his curiosity and commitments to lifelong learning, his willingness to work with a group of touchy-feely types. You know, we try to help with relationships and whatnot. Michael was straight-on, smart guy that had all the technical expertise. But you know what? He warmed up to us. And over the years, he really began to embrace, hey, this stuff's actually kind of important to get along with people and be able to relate. And then finally, everyone on that call mentioned his devotion to Colin, how much he loved him unconditionally, shown in ways like coaching him on pitching a baseball. The team offered more examples, some of which I've mentioned already. Since Michael passed on Saturday, Focus Consulting, our firm, has received hundreds of condolences from around the world. At one point this week, my inbox had 300 unread messages. I'm still trying to dig out from all the people who have sent comments about Michael and how much he meant to them. On the more personal side, Michael and I passed the Tokyo test. That's when you fly overseas with a colleague and survive. We got along great. He was low maintenance, easy to travel with, largely unflappable. We showed up at O'Hare one day, and the agent told me my passport had expired. We were going to Canada. And I looked at Michael and said, "So I can't go. Can you handle the assignment?" And Michael said in his usual way, "Well, what exactly is the assignment?" In other words, my half of it. And I explained it, and he goes, "Yeah, I can do that." Unflappable. Just, okay, I'll go on my own. I'll do the assignment. No fuss, no drama with Michael. I really appreciated that about him. In fact, sometimes I would get frustrated and I would think to myself, "Michael, you're supposed to get upset about things like this." But I would see that wry smile of his, and he would know, sort of behind his stoicism, that all of this was humorous in its own way. Despite his professional manner, Michael had a big, big heart. When Michael learned of his diagnosis, he asked me to stop by his house so we could talk face to face, in the middle of the pandemic, but face to face. As he explained his diagnosis and what it meant, he remained calm and objective, as you would expect. But when the conversation turned to his family, Suzanne and Colin, his voice cracked, and he said, "I promised my family I would always take care of them, and I won't be there for them." And he wept. His hands on his face, this man with his professional stoic, he just wept. I was privileged to see the deep love right there that he had for his family. He was not concerned about himself, it was evident, but about their welfare. He took seriously that commitment to be a good provider for his family, and he was. Never once did he complain, at least to me, about his illness. Not once. I would go visit him, and we would talk for hours, and we would have wonderful conversations about all kinds of topics. Never once. Boy, did I get the short end of the stick. Never once. Well, Michael would chide me for not presenting a balanced view of him and his life, so I'm obligated to note that he was not a perfect human being. Sometimes he would lecture on the details of social policy longer than I or any human being wanted to hear. Michael could be stubborn. That man could dig in on topics. Suzanne knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sure in our discussions he often thought, how long is it going to take me before Jim realizes that he's wrong? And usually I would, because he was brilliant. There was the smartest man in the room syndrome, but he usually was the smartest man in the room, so you had to kind of balance that one. And there was snarkiness, which has been mentioned already. Here and there, he loved to throw in a snarky comment. As the Beatles might say, here, there, and everywhere, he liked to throw in those comments. Many of the condolences that came in mentioned his sense of humor. And people really enjoyed that Michael liked to laugh at things. He did not take this life too seriously at all, which is funny for a guy who had some really good, profound thinking, but it never got in the way of his seeing the humor in things. Although Keith and I, every now and then, would remind him that after you tell a joke 2 times and there's no laughter, you don't tell it a 3rd time. We coached him on that. He was fine with all his banter. He would take feedback so easily. In fact, Keith and I often said, he's probably the best at receiving feedback we'd ever known. He just didn't take it personally. We used to joke, I mean, you could take a 2x4 and hit him over the forehead, and he'd just think about it. Is that valid? Is that not valid? He was a blessing to me, to my teammates, all those who knew him in many ways. Scrupulously honest, dedicated to finding and stating the truth, whatever the cost of that. He and I had fine discussions about topics like faith. As our rabbi said, he was an agnostic, but he was totally open to discussions about faith. He didn't shy away, and he listened with genuine curiosity. We talked about love. We talked about purpose. He was deeply committed to finding meaning in one's life. Time and again, he showed me that when a person states their view, it doesn't have to be attacking someone else or diminishing someone else. He taught me to be more thoughtful, more curious, more provocative, more courageous. And I mean that. Being around him helped inspire me to live up to those virtues. And he was fair-minded. In all of our business dealings, I never once thought he's going to try to get an angle on this. Never. He wanted win-wins. He wouldn't be happy with a situation where he felt like he came out with more than the other partner. Never. In short, Michael had character and was a character in the very best sense of that description. Passionate man who truly loved life, especially his mental life. He told his colleagues at Focus over and over, as long as I can think and speak, I will continue working. And that's what he did. The week that he passed, this was a man who could not feed himself. He was facilitating discussions with leaders from around the world. Final week. The day before he passed, Michael and Keith discussed some of Michael's upcoming work assignments. So it came as a shock to his teammates when he passed the next day. We are grateful for our time with him. Life handed us a gift in Michael. And despite the sadness we feel, I am happy that Michael's struggle is over now after a heroic demonstration of grace under pressure. So, Michael, despite your agnostic stance, I'm going to say it. God bless you, brother. Thank you for all the good times we shared. May you rest in peace. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Jim, as you spoke about truth and honesty, it tied it all up in a bow for me a little bit. I'm very sad to say I didn't know Michael, but the grace with which his family shared his stories with me, clearly an incredible man, very dedicated to truth. The Hebrew word for truth, emet, includes the first letter and the last letter of the alphabet, and the one right in the middle. Everything in order, everything in its place, and letters that are steady on their feet. Knowing the direction, everything in its place, towards truth. And that's some of who Michael was. He was born July 10th, 1967. In Skokie before graduating from high school in Palatine. As a young man, he was quiet and determined, very serious for a young man. And he was a perfectionist. Everything, just like truth, had to be lined up just so. But he always had a sense of humor about him. And that humor made him easy to talk to. Called him the wizard. because he knew everything about everything. As Jim said, he was open to hearing other opinions, even though he knew that he was right in the end. And he was particularly serious about baseball, a sport that he loved, that he found tremendous success in before making a change and directing a career towards finance when he took a risk. But it was a risk to bet on himself, a worthy bet. Consulting and offering advice to strengthen people and relationships and opportunities to build something that mattered, to make sure that people would be taken care of. He loved that career, in part because he could tell people what to do and they would listen to him. And it gave him the chance to find solutions, setting people up for a comfortable future. At 40, he had open heart surgery. And that moment forced him to reevaluate, to look at his life and wonder who he was and who he wanted to be. And he could tell that something was missing, which is when he found Jim and Focus Consulting Group and a dream job, where he got to understand the human side of finance. And he thrived. He would pride himself on how he could save companies, repair relationships, bring people together, winning awards. And in addition to writing the book and asking everyone to read it, he could watch the news and tell you everything they said he had already written. And he would cite chapter and page number and line and quiz you if you knew the answer already. He became a sought-after speaker the world over. And he would travel enough that Suzanne and Colin would say that his office was at O'Hare. And whenever he traveled, he would do his best to bring his family along. To Japan to see baseball games. The most incredible Thanksgiving in Amsterdam, or going, I think you said, waffle to waffle to waffle on your way through Brussels. And after his diagnosis, he exhibited a tremendous strength. He knew that his goal was to see Colin play baseball in high school. And he'd sit right behind home plate. A great view, safe, but also meant he had the perfect sight line to give thoughtful advice, we'll say. And though COVID was hard, it was a gift, an extra time with family. For family dinners and conversations, insisting that you go to the bookshelf with all the books that changed his life that he would insist that you'd read and get through a page or two, but knowing that the focus was on helping you become your best selves. And as has been said again and again and bears repeating, Colin would just turn him to mush. A man who could have a hard exterior just turned to jelly around his son. As a parent, he was firm and focused, but always wanted to help you improve. Because good enough was never good enough. But you were good enough. Wanted to push you to be your best because he could see it in you. And surely, you didn't have enough time with him. But he had no regrets. And very sweetly, a man who was an author the world over, interviewed by financial papers, had a journalist friend who helped Michael write his own obituary or worked on it together. Knew the right answer, knew how the story should be told. Are you sharing it with people? You should share it with people. Ask Suzanne to share it with you. It's beautiful. He always preferred being early to simply being on time. He wanted to do the right things and pass that on to others. And he knew that Colin was his greatest achievement, fulfilling his goal of leaving the world a better place than he found it. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of. And after his diagnosis, he got a tattoo. You can see it in the picture, if you haven't seen it already, in the front. It said, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And that poem, those words, wasn't a reminder to him. It was for all of you. That as you might see those words on his arm, see the pain that he was going through and the sadness of his illness. He wanted you to have courage and wisdom and strength. Even to the end, he wanted to take care of you. He wanted to share that wisdom that he had gained. And those relationships that were just wonderful. That's what mattered most. In a life of determination and strength, of success, of building, repairing, and sustaining relationships, of becoming admired and revered the world over. It was family that mattered most. Suzanne shared with me that the power of love was their song, the first dance they had. The power of love. Tremendous strength. Zecher tzadik livracha. May the memory and the mention of this righteous man always, always be for blessing. I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim shochen במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת מיכאל בן יוסף וגיסה שהלך לעולמו. בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Michael S. Falk, who has gone into eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. To which we say, Amen. Please be seated. We have just a few more words to share together. In a moment, I'll ask you to rise again, and we'll join together in Kaddish Yatom, in the Mourner's Kaddish. For those who are familiar with that prayer, with that liturgy, we associate it with loss and mourning. And almost inexplicably, the words themselves speak about life, reminding us in this moment of loss of all that is worthy of blessing, gratitude, praise, and celebration. And these words, when we say them slowly, with intention, they kind of roll. They have a patter that I think is there to comfort us, to offer us embrace within the words. And these words also require a minyan. They need a quorum. You can't say Kaddish alone. You need a community to gather. We can't remember on our own. We remember with a family, with a community. And again, just as we started, today will continue. Today, and tonight, tomorrow night. this week, this month, this year, we'll share stories and memories. You will share stories and memories. Maybe you'll find the family and whisper. You'll send an email. Surely Jim will send all 300 emails to Suzanne and Colin. We'll speak memory into being, and his memory will surely be a blessing. Please rise. It's on the back of your service handout. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mavarach le'alam ul almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barich hu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace on high allow peace to descend on all of us, and all who mourn, all the world, to which we'll say, Amen. Please be seated.
Friends, this concludes the services today at our chapel. The interment is private. For those of you who have joined us today, the family invites you to gather with them at their residence at 2830 Hoffman Lane in Riverwoods. That's today, immediately following the services until 8 p.m. They'll also be together Saturday from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. We ask that you would please let the family depart the chapel and refrain from offering any condolences at this time so that they can make their way back to the residence for the Shiva. And with this in mind, we'll ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the family from the chapel and let them depart.